Easter was supposedly marked in Ukraine by a brief 30-hour ceasefire, which was announced by Russia and agreed to by the government in Kyiv. The whole thing appears to have been pretty meaningless, though. Ukrainian officials said that there was a bit of a slowdown in the fighting, but they also accused Russian troops of violating the ceasefire numerous times, despite having called it in the first place. So more than 3 years into this horrible, horrible war, and despite all of the talk of peace initiatives, especially from the US, the fighting is still very much ongoing. People's towns are still being shelled. People are still losing their lives and their limbs and their loved ones. This week, though, we wanted to talk about the version of the war that has been taking place online for the past 3 years. It's obviously a lot less visible, but the internet version of this war has also been taking place at a furious pace because the stakes are pretty high. As we're about to hear, what happens online has the ability to shape what happens on the ground in a big way. So this week, Dominic, we're going to talk about OSINT. Do you know what OSINT is? I think you do know a little bit.
Well, yes, because we did this interview earlier this week. But yeah, OSINT, it stands for Open Source Intelligence, and it's a form of intelligence gathering that uses publicly available information to work out things about people and things. It's not a very good definition. Thanks for putting me on the spot, Katy.
You're welcome. Yeah, so it's basically online detective work, right? So for example, it might involve something like looking at a photo and trying to work out where that photo was taken, using something like Google Street View to, like identify buildings that you can see in the background. And that kind of sleuthing work has been used in this war, for example, to locate Russian troops within Ukraine and then launch strikes on those targets. So it can have a very, very real world effect. This week, we're going to talk to someone who has been involved in this kind of work in Ukraine. Daria Verbytska was until recently head of the Molfar Intelligence Institute. It is an offshoot of a Ukrainian company called Molfar, which you're going to hear about in a second. But the institute itself is dedicated to using OSINT work to help Ukraine win the war. And they have been applying this technology in some really creative ways. We gave Daria a call in Kyiv.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Daria. Really nice to have you on The Europeans. I wanted to start by talking about the name of your company. I believe there's an interesting legend behind the name Molfar. Could you tell us a bit about the legend behind the name of your company?
Molfar, actually, it's like a Latinized word or name of Ukrainian mythological or magician. It's like a person who can predict the future, and usually he or she works with his or her internal feelings. But in our case, we actually believe that only the facts, not the magic, can shape the truth, the world, etc. And the culture of all of these predictions, magicians, etc., it's kind of popular in Ukraine. So when people search online in Ukraine for Molfar predictions or something like that, they ended up at our website, and we think it's kind of beautiful.
Clever. I mean, it's kind of geeky to say it, but I also like the idea of open source technology as a kind of magic in itself. I mean, the company was founded long before the war, and indeed a lot of its work is still completely unrelated to the war. For example, Molfar works with corporate clients in different countries, carrying out background checks on potential business partners. But when Russia launched the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, was it immediately obvious that the company might be able to play a useful role in the war effort?
When Russia invaded, everything was changed for our company, as most of our team, actually, they were and they are based in Dnipro, and they stayed there. The problem actually was like in the team, because they felt, like everything changed, and maybe there is no chance that everything will get back normal. So we tried to find any ways to strengthen our team and to unite them again. And we decided to change the way where we put our energy, and we chose to work against Russia. So we started with the fact checks, with the missile strikes. de-anonymization of some kind of propagandists or military, Russian military, of course. And that brought us really big community. Now we have more than 100,000 followers across our social media. And we have really big volunteer community. So now we cannot just give up and forget what we did in 2022 and 2023 just because we have all of that power and probably background.
If I understand correctly, some of what your analysts do involves using tools that are quite easily available to all of us, like Google Maps, or tools that allow anyone to do a reverse image search. But how much of the work involves using more sophisticated tools and artificial intelligence? And what kind of things are your analysts using these tools for?
It really depends on a task. So for military-related investigations, we use tools that wouldn't be relevant or available for civilians. And I can go into details about all of the tasks that are related to military cases for obvious reasons. But generally, we train our students and analysts to work with both free and paid tools, and they are open sourced. So we mentor them through real investigations and often from the scratch. One of our favorite use cases involved, for example, the tool called PMICE. It's a facial recognition search engine. And in one case, we traced the person through a Pinterest using PMICE firstly.
Yeah, PimEyes is this tool where you can get one image of someone and then you find all the images online from that one face, right?
Exactly. But I didn't want to make any advertisement for PimEyes, but we are using PimEyes. And using PimEyes, we found the Pinterest account where this person have saved tattoo inspirations. And then we matched that Pinterest with the tattoo that we seen in a video previously. And that video was kind of with a sexual character, and that was not showing face. So we built this long chain to identify that one person was the state or local official in occupied territory. Wow. But actually, all of that tools, they're on our website, and there are hundreds of that tools, and you can feel free to find anything paid or not paid, or free or not free, etc. So it's open sourced.
Back in 2023, it was reported that Molfar's analysts had used fake profiles on dating apps using pictures of imaginary women that had been generated using AI to get into conversation with Russian soldiers in the hope that these soldiers would then reveal useful information, for example, about their location and the state of morale among their troops, things like this. Presumably, it's harder to do that kind of thing now because the Russians are aware that this kind of thing is happening, right? Have you had to kind of change strategy, change tactics?
Yeah, that was work of our human intelligence team, and that's kind of not about OSINT. That's about another kind of intelligence. So by that time, when the story became public, that particular method was already losing effectiveness because the Russian side had learned from their mistakes, and their Telegram channels, they were full of warnings like do not use dating apps, don't talk to strangers. Actually, they adopted quickly, and these kinds of techniques can work for just a while and not forever. So methods are changing all the time.
Is there a project from your team that you're willing to talk about and that you're most proud of?
I'm especially proud of our work on helping bringing Ukrainian children who were illegally abducted by Russia. Thanks to that project, we brought back more than 400 children.
Wow.
Yeah, the main problem of this project is that was kind of stopped this year because earlier that was funded by US government. And now we have to raise money for finding them again. But probably that's the most important project for me.
Sounds like a very impactful project, a really amazing thing to have been able to have been a part of.
Yeah, that was really nice. that made like a feeling of like your work is really important. It's not just about social media or media outlets, but it's like about lives and you felt important and valuable in this life.
So it's very clear that, even if this stuff is happening online, it is affecting the real world. If we zoom out, in general, what kind of an impact do you think open source intelligence is having on the fight against Russia?
Oh God, I'm struggling with not answering something like really big impact.
It's too big. Yeah. It's a big question.
So yeah, I think that it's kind of really, really big impact because probably every week we have 1 to 3 requests from different military or I don't know, governmental departments for teaching them. That's because they know that open source intelligence works and human intelligence works. So by this request, I'm more than sure that that's really important for our country and for the state.
Well, I mean, long before the war, Russia already had quite a big international reputation for running sophisticated online operations like troll farms, campaigns to interfere in foreign elections, and so on. So did you get the sense when the full-scale invasion started that Ukraine had a heavy disadvantage when it came to its ability to fight Russian operations online? And if so, to what extent do you think Ukraine has now managed to catch up with Russia?
Before the full-scale invasion, actually the Russian OSINT culture and OSINT techniques, they were already formed. In Ukraine, that was kind of new culture that actually even didn't start to form. So after the full-scale invasion, we tried to form this community of OSINT activists, of OSINT culture, etc. And now it works. And now there are like lots of people who are interested in OSINT and provide this intelligence, etc. And now we have this culture and we have the capabilities to compete with the Russian community and Russian OSINT culture. Yeah.
As you mentioned, your investigations have often identified specific Russian individuals allegedly involved in attacks. In some cases, these are really serious attacks, like the strike last summer on the country's biggest children's hospital, an attack that constitutes a war crime under international law. Do you believe you might one day get to see some of the people identified by your investigations in an international court?
Yeah, I believe that actually that will happen. Even now, we are proceeding our data to our government and they are proceeding this data to The Hague. During this time, we identified like thousands of people who were here in Ukraine making some awful stuff. I think that one day we will take part in this. We will take part in this legal history.
If you're listening to The Europeans as a podcast this week, you'll be able to find a link to Molfar's investigative work in the show notes. And if you're listening to this via the radio, you can head straight to their website, molfar.com. That is MOLFAR.com. Something I really like about what Molfar have been doing here is like harnessing an army of volunteer geeks to help them out with it. Like it's not just paid members of staff who contribute to these investigations. Like there are so many people who are good at stuff like squinting at Google Maps and matching the location of somewhere to a place where a photo was taken. And that stuff can be incredibly helpful in the real life effort to help Ukraine.
Yeah, there is something kind of thrilling about this, the possibility to help just by sitting behind your laptop.
Yeah. And, as we know, the internet is a very dark place. And when it comes to wars, it can be used in all kinds of ways to spread propaganda and misinformation. But this is one of those times where I think you can really see this positive side of the internet and this, Wikipedia-style approach to random people all over the world coming together and using their spare time to try and help out with something. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool that Molfar have assembled this volunteer army.
It sure is.